Version 3.3 is not just another patch cycle, it's an anniversary patch, which means it's packed with features, top banners, events, and quests to keep everyone engaged. And if you don't spend your Asterites responsibly, you'll be punished hard. Yo, welcome back to the channel. Kamusta po sa inyong lahat? So, the current timeline suggests Phase 1 begins around April 29 and runs until May 20th. That's when Hiyuki enters the picture along with the first set of reruns. Phase 2 follows immediately after, running until June 9th, and that's when Denia shows up together with another rotation of reruns. There's also an early preview event expected mid-April that gives you a trial run of Hiyuki before you commit, which sounds helpful until you realize it's also bait. Now, let's talk about Hiyuki because she's clearly being positioned as the headliner here. So on paper, she's a Glacier Sword DPS, but her design is more layered than that. Her entire kit revolves around building and spending a resource pool that caps at 300. You generate it through basic attack chains and her skill, and once it's full, you unlock a stronger heavy attack that acts as a damage spike. But what actually makes her interesting is how she interacts with Glacial application. There's a stacking Glacial shaft mechanic applied by the entire team, which then feeds into bonus damage and eventually pushes enemies into a higher vulnerability state. So she's not just dealing damage in isolation, she scales with how well your team supports her. She also has an alternate combat state that shifts her attack into ranged sword waves. That's where her burst potentially really kicks in. So instead of being locked into one style, she moves between sustained damage and burst windows depending on how you manage her resources. And that kind of flexibility usually means higher skill expression, but also a higher ceiling if you play it properly. Her signature weapon follows the same philosophy: strong base stats, but more importantly, effects that directly reinforce her kit. More attack, more glacial scaling, defense ignored during her burst window, and better area coverage. It's not trying to fix her weaknesses, it's a doubling down on what she already does well. Now, on to Phase 2. Denia enters from a completely different angle. She's not competing with Hiyuki as a main damage dealer, instead she's designed to enable damage. Her kit revolves around layered mechanics that build up over time, creating a loop where she amplifies both herself and the team. The standout feature here is her dual mode system. One mode leads into single target amplification while the other shifts into area-based support. That alone already gives her flexibility depending on the content you're facing. But what really stands out is her utility. She has access to grouping mechanics, which immediately increases her value in multi-target scenarios. And on top of that, she provides team-wide buffs tied to fusion burst interactions. So instead of just adding damage, she's increasing the output of everyone else on the team. Her weapon reflects that identity as well: high crit rate, solid base attack, and effects that scale with how often fusion burst effects are triggered. There's even a team-wide attack boost built into it under the right conditions. She's not just a sub DPS, she's also an amplifier. Now, let's talk about the reruns. Phase 1 is expected to bring back characters like Mornier and Yuno, both of which already have strong utility in existing team comps. Now, Phase 2 follows up with Frolova and Chisa, adding even more pressure depending on what your account is missing. But because this is an anniversary patch, there's a very real chance the rerun list expands even further. And we're talking multiple high-value characters potentially returning in a single version. And if that happens, this stops being a banner cycle and turns into a resource management test. This means version 3.3 could also be an asteroid trap, especially When you consider right after it, we will likely have the Cyberpunk collab in version 3.4. And that's really the theme of 3.3. It's not asking if you want a character, it's asking if you can afford them. Now, outside of banners, the update is also pushing forward the main story. The Star Torch Academy arc is expected to conclude here, which means this is likely a major narrative checkpoint. And at the same time, a new region is rumored to open beneath the current map, bringing new enemies and a new weekly boss. That matters more than it sounds because new bosses mean new materials, new enemies mean new mechanics to learn, and a new region means more exploration, which ties directly into how much currency you can actually farm during the patch. Looking slightly ahead, there are already hints that the next version could pivot into a completely different aesthetic with a collaboration style direction. So 3.3 isn't just wrapping things up, it's setting the stage for what comes next. Events are also stacked this time. There's a mix of combat focused challenges and lighter side content, along with the usual anniversary rewards. Based on previous patterns, you're looking at a decent amount of free pulls if you stay consistent. Enough to make a difference, but not enough to save you from bad decisions. On the system side, new echo sets are being introduced. One of them leans heavily into team-wide buffs and burst rotations, while the other is clearly tailored towards glacial interactions. It's not subtle, they're building around the new characters, obviously. There are also smaller but important updates, UI improvements, additional customization through accessories, and even early mentions of new traversal options. Some of these are still speculative, but if they land, they change how the game feels on a fundamental level, not just how it plays in combat. So, when you step back and look at everything together, version 3.3 doesn't feel like a normal update. It feels grand. Multiple systems, multiple high value banners, story progression, and future setup all happening at once. Plus, before I forget, the Xbox release of the game. Now, this brings us to the real question. What are you actually doing with your pulls? Because this is where most players start to fall. It's easy to get excited when everything looks valuable, but 3.3 is designed to overwhelm you with options so you stop thinking about long term value. Every banner looks justified, every rerun feels necessary, and before you realize it, you've spread your resources too thin to fully capitalize on anything. And as always, if this video resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe, ring that bell for massive gotcha luck and maybe a sandwich. Thank you so much for watching. Maraming salamat po, and I will see you in my next video drop. Goodbye.